I have so many questions. I know you probably do too. That's why we're going to bring in our friend, legal analyst Neama Rahmani, and he joins me. Neama, good to see you. Hope you had a good weekend there. I think a lot happened today in court. Before we get to some of the witness testimony and how that's impacting the prosecution and the defense, let's talk about the gag order violation again. He was fined $1,000. This is the 10th time, Neama, that he has violated the gag order. If he was any other defendant, would he get 10 times to violate it, or would he be in jail already for contempt?
Andrew, you and I would be in Rikers Island by now, but I think the judge said what everyone is thinking, that it would be unprecedented and it would result in not only logistical issues, but political fallout as well. So he is loath to imprison Donald Trump despite Trump's repeated violations of the gag orders. The question is, will Trump continue to violate the order? I think the answer to that is yes. I think, will Juan Merchan imprison him? Probably not, but he may do something like say that you have to stay in Trump Tower, home confinement, or maybe even give an adverse jury instruction. Let the jurors know that that defendant, Donald Trump, he has continually violated this court's order, and that's something you jurors should be aware of.
Okay, so I want to read from our producer's notes in the courtroom today when the gag order violation came down. The judge, Juan Merchan, says, it's clear the $1,000 fine is not working. He says, going forward, this court will have to consider a jail sentence. He says, the last thing I want to consider is jail. You are a former president and possibly the next president. Merchan says he worries about that step for Trump as well, and how kind of the jail staff would interact with Secret Service. You know, this is completely new territory, uncharted, unprecedented here. But it did seem like Juan Merchan was at his wit's end. Was that a last straw for him or no?
I think he is very frustrated because he's never had a defendant like this that continues to willfully and knowingly violate that order. And he's right. $1,000 means nothing to Donald Trump, and he will continue to violate the order. But really, what is the judge going to do? What can he do? I mean, we've talked about it on the show. I mean, I can't imagine the mass protest, the civil unrest that would ensue if Donald Trump is imprisoned in the middle of a presidential election. So I think the judge is desperately trying to do everything he can to get some sort of compliance, move this case along without holding him in criminal contempt and actually taking him into custody.
Okay, so, you know, you're saying you saw that soundbite in Connor's report from Andy McCarthy as well, that the judge has to take politics into mind here, that he has to consider the political questions at play here. Really? A judge has to do that?
They don't have to, Andrew, but really it's the political reality here. You know, you have Secret Service in the courtroom. When has that ever happened, right? We're talking about the first criminal prosecution of a former U.S. president. So judges are ordinary people like you and I. They're not going to operate in a vacuum. He sees the media attention in the courtroom, and he doesn't want to be the first judge in American history to jail a former president. It's potentially opening up a political Pandora's box that we never may be able to get away from. I think if we're up to Judge Juan Merchan, he'd just like to get this trial over with without having the witnesses and the parties be threatened or intimidated.
Okay, so I guess my last question on the gag order question. Is there a threshold that you think for Juan Merchan, the judge? Is it 20 violations? Is it 30 violations? There have been 10 violations of the gag order. We're only in week 3. Do you think he will hit a threshold where he will say, maybe not jail time, but some of the, I guess, avenues and outlets that you suggested to send a message here? Do you think we're going to get to that point?
I think we may. I don't think we'll ever reach the point where Judge Merchan will pull the trigger and actually imprison Donald Trump. I don't think that's going to be going to happen, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 100. I don't think he's going to do it, but he may do some step short of that. Like I said, I think home confinement, adverse jury instructions, something to that effect. But sending them to Rikers Island, where he'd have to be isolated from the population with Secret Service protection, even for some short period of time, is something that's so extreme and so problematic. I don't think he's going to do that.
All right, Neama, let's talk about the witnesses today. We had Jeff McConney. We also have Deborah Tarasoff. These are either former or current Trump organization employees. You know, and it seemed like we're getting a better picture of how the payment scheme came to be. But Donald Trump's role in it is still somewhat murky, still somewhat cloudy here. You have all of these people testifying, well, this is how you made a payment, and this is what it was recorded as, and this is who signed off on it, and this is who knew about it. But has any of that directly pegged Donald Trump here?
I think so, Andrew. I think the key testimony from today from Tarasov was as follows. Any payment of more than $10,000 had to be approved by Donald Trump personally, and any payment from his personal account had to be approved by Donald Trump. And there were times where Donald Trump would not sign those checks. He would return it back as void. And he signed those $35,000 payments to Michael Cohen. So I think that was important testimony from someone who is a current Trump employee.
You know, and Todd Blanche kind of went to great lengths to explain that process into Trump's thinking of why he would void some checks, why he would approve others here. So I guess we'll only get a clearer answer to some of the inner workings of that question if he testifies, right?
I think so. I think Trump will take the stand. I still believe he wants to tell his story. I don't think he's really concerned about the criminal fallout in this case. We know that he is talking to the American people. So I think he will absolutely have an explanation for that as well when he takes a stand in this case.
So if, say, the, I guess, prosecution cannot prove that Donald Trump made these decisions solely on his own behalf, is that the case there? I mean, does a jury acquit after that? You know, you're not even talking about, you know, elevating the misdemeanors to felonies here to see whether or not they might have impacted the 2016 election. If they cannot pinpoint that he was in charge, that he was calling the shots, is it over?
I think so. That's a potential defense there. And we know that I think the defense is going to lean in that direction. We saw that during their opening statements where they said that an accountant is the one who booked these entries the way they did. I don't know who that fall guy will be. Is it Weisselberg? Is it someone else? But I think they will have someone in the Trump organization accounting department that they believe is responsible for booking these reimbursements as legal expenses. And I think that's going to be a key defense. We won't know, obviously, until the defense starts its case in chief, probably in 2 to 3 weeks.
All right. So we got a lot more in store in this trial. Is what you're saying. Neama Rahmani, as always, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.